Hello, and welcome back to Play of the Game. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Jason.
and we are back with actually a spot from the same game as we discussed in last episode. So this is a little bit further down the line. We've hit some more land drops this time, but we are still in the same game, and we are under some pressure here. So our opponent has 3 creatures on board. I guess I won't skip ahead and summarize the board state. You can do that. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted to do it this time, but anyways, so what's
We'll stick to
happened
our
this
rhythm.
game is that both players have missed many land drops. It is currently we are currently looking at our turn 7, on which we hit our 5th land drop finally, after like missing our 4th land drop for like 2 turns, and our opponent also only has 4 lands in play, and they have 4 cards in hand. So we're at 8, notably. Very, very scary life total, given that our opponent has a 1/3, a 3/2, and a 2/1 on board. So the 1/3 being the forecasting fortune tellers, the 3/2 being a knowledge seeker with a counter on it. That's the vigilance creature that dies into a clue and grows when you draw your second card, and a otter penguin, which it is the thing that gets +1/+2 and unblockable when you draw your second card. So theoretically, if they drew a second card next turn, they would just have lethal on board, right? 8 damage, because they would have their 1/3, the knowledge seeker would grow to 4 power, and the otter penguin would grow to 3 power. So yeah, very scary. We don't have any creatures on board. Our previous turns. So what happened the last turn cycle was that we finally found our land drop by accumulating wisdom to draw 3 cards, played our 4th land drop, and tried to use razor rings on our opponent's creature, to which they responded with an octopus form. So that's partially why we've taken so much damage. Was the last turn cycle did not go amazing for us, though we did find our land drops. um so yeah, now we've untapped, but we have a lot of good cards in hand that we could use to help, solve the situation. Unfortunately, most of our cards cost 3, and we only have 5 lands to work with. So of our cards that cost 3, we have Messenger Hawk, the 3 and the 1/2 flyer that makes a clue, and it gets +2/+0 when you draw your second card. We have a Invasion Submersible, the vehicle that bounces a thing and becomes a 3/3 if you waterbend it. We have the Mechanist. That's the 1/3 that makes clues whenever you cast non-creature spells and can turn clues into 3/1 flyers by tapping. And we have Aang Swift Savior, probably the best card in our deck, the 3 mana 2/3 flash flying ETB airbend target creature. So even though we are very far behind, um, we have some really good catch-up tools. All 3 of those 3 drops that aren't Hawk are pretty nice for that. In addition to that, we still have that planetarium that we were talking about last episode. Our game plan was to hit land drops to get to the casting planetarium. We have not successfully engaged in
Implemented,
that game
yeah.
plan yet, but it's still here, still waiting for us to hit our 6th land drop. And we have a Enter the Avatar state. That's the 1 mana instant that gives something hexproof flying first strike lifelink. So that helps protect us against the removal spell, at least, which is kind of nice. Um, so yeah, that's our hand. We don't have our 6th land drop still, notably. Did we discard it to hand size last turn? Or
I do
yeah,
not
no, no.
remember.
Okay, we did not. Okay,
We have
we
6
just like
cards, so it
didn't
must not
draw.
have done
We haven't drawn 6 lands yet. But either way, there's not that many choices that we can make, right? Obviously, we can't cast 2 of our 3 mana spells, and we
that.
can't cast our 6 mana spell. So mostly the question is, which of our 3 drops do we cast? Messenger Hawk, Invasion Submersible, the Mechanist, or Aang. And obviously, in addition to that, we're holding up Enter the Avatar state. There's the bonus question of how are we like blocking, like depending on what the opponent does, how are we planning on blocking and how are we planning on using Enter? Obviously, if they cast a removal spell, it's very easy. We just like use Enter immediately. But some questions maybe some situations might be like slightly trickier in terms of how we want to leverage that.
Yeah, I think there's weirdly a lot and not very much going on here. Like, as you said, our basic decision is which of our 3 drops do we cast, and we have
Yeah.
4 options. Probably like one of them at least we can discard pretty easily, but I think the other 3 are somewhat interesting. And weirdly, the one that I'm probably wanting to discard is the one that actually would let us spend all of our mana this turn, the Messenger Hawk. We could spend 5, draw an extra card, and try to hit a land drop. Are you thinking about playing Messenger Hawk? Yeah.
So I will say, I think it's very easy to discard Messenger Hawk, and I think that like it's probably not correct. But the thing that is appealing about it at the very least is that we really, really need our 6th
We
land drop.
really
Like,
do.
if we do not hit our 6th land drop next turn, or well, I guess we could draw a 2-mana spell to double spell, but like we really need to be double spelling in order to catch back up here. And like drawing our 6th land drop, not only is it for Planetarium, though we're not casting that next turn. No way are we doing that. It's mostly about being able to cast 2 of the 3-mana spells next turn.
And our 3-mana spells
So
are pretty good. So like if we can cast 2 of them, it's pretty likely we can catch up in this game.
yeah, so like
Any increase to the chances that we can double spell with 3s next turn is pretty important, which is why I was saying like it might be easy to discard Messenger Hawk, but like are we totally sure?
yeah, so how I would put it is Messenger Hawk is the option that you cast if you think that you're relatively safe. Right? Like
Yes.
if
Or
you
in
are
another
not
way,
scared,
you need to decide that you are relatively safe or that you are not
yeah,
scared.
so well, okay, it's not quite that because the Messenger Hawk might also be the thing that you cast if you say I'm going to not respect you having anything,
Yeah.
basically, right? But yeah, let's talk about a little bit about what we think our opponent might have. So
I
this
think
is
that is
again
very
best of
important
one.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is best of 1 Arena Direct, so like we don't know any information from a previous game, but we have some information from how they've been playing. Notably, so far the only things they've cast this game have been these 3 2-drops, a abandoned attachments that they cast last turn, and an octopus form that they also cast last turn. Um, sorry, they also cast a Razor Rings to kill our 3/3 that we cast at some point. But yeah, so we haven't really given them a creature to use a removal spell on other than, that one interaction that already happened, the Razor Rings on our 3/3. So they're pretty live to have removal, and they probably don't have like any 3-drops in hand, right? Like they've had infinite opportunity to spend 3 mana on some sort of threat, but they haven't done that this game. They only just got to 4 mana last turn, so like it's possible that their hand is full of 4-drops. We don't know that it's full of spells though, because last turn they did cast abandoned attachments, discarding something after playing their land drop. It's possible they just drew into 2 lands.
Although
Notably,
they likely have at least one spell. I think we can conclude that given that they've been missing land drops. And probably more than one because it's unlikely that they discarded and then drew 2 lands.
Yeah, so something that we can infer going back to like their last turn was they were on 3 lands, 5 cards in hand, and they had missed the land drop. So none of those 5 cards are lands. Then they drew a card, played a land. So that was probably a land that they drew. Then they cast abandoned attachments, discarded a Spirit Water Revival to draw 2. So those are 2 out of those 5 cards gone into 2 random cards, and then they cast a Octopus form. So we know they almost certainly have at least 2 spells left in hand because like even if the abandoned attachments drew into 2 lands, they would still like Octopus form was one of the 5 cards they were holding. 2 of their cards still should be non-lands in some form, and like what those non-lands are again are probably like either like worse 2-drops than what they've played, though that's maybe like slightly less likely given that they've played 3 2-drops, or maybe like 3 probably not a 3-drop. They could be 4-drops or removal spells, or like more like 4-drops or interaction in some form, right? Or like more card draw spells or something. So yeah, that's what we suspect they have.
Okay. So, they probably have something reasonable to do next turn. I think if we're thinking they have 2 spells and 4 lands, possibly 5, probably 5 next turn, that means they're going to do something relatively good. So, the idea that we would conclude that we're not scared at all, probably wrong. Although the only way that we might want to conclude that is if we feel like we have to. And that's really the question here is, do we think we need to gamble on hitting our 6th land drop and being able to double spell with 2 3s, Or do we think we are like totally dead if that doesn't happen, and there isn't that much that like playing a different 3 would do to change our blocks next turn? I think really what this hinges on is not necessarily do we think they can do anything good next turn, but do we think they can do anything that affects combat on the following turn? Because the way I'm seeing this, the tools in our hand are very good at catching up on board, but the real like big thing that could swing the next turn is, can they draw an extra card or can they remove our threat? I mean, we kind of have that covered with the avatar state. So really it sort of, for me, boils down to, do we expect them to be able to draw an extra card next turn? Because if they do, that presents really pretty lethal amount of board presence. Maybe not exactly, because we get to chump the Knowledge Seeker or take exactly 7 and like block the Forecasting Fortune Teller maybe with our Messenger Hawk, just for example, and go to like exactly 1. But them drawing a card would represent us being very, very close to dead, whereas them not drawing a card, we could just block the 2/1 with any of the 3s we play, besides Submersible, which we'll get to, and only take like 4, have presented a trade, and then be advancing our board to the point where we can probably like try to recover. So a little bit it boils down to like, what probability do we assign to them being able to draw a second card next turn? It's not a full boil down to that, but like that's a very important question here, I think.
So I would like to posit now that I think it's very likely. Specifically, and again, I think this is a really cool spot, partially because we get it. I think arriving at the correct answer here, or like reasoning about the situation, involves a lot thinking about what the opponent did on previous turns, and like thinking about what that information has told us. Because I think we can glean a lot from like the actions they've taken. We've already talked a lot about that, but I want to specifically point out again, they discarded Spirit Water Revival to abandoned attachments, right? So this is after they played their second blue land, so they could like have the mana to cast Spirit Water Revival, which is 1 blue, draw 2 cards, or like, you know, really nice late game like draw 7 if they waterbend for if they waterbend and pay 9 total. I think like waterbend 6 in addition to the 3. I think that's what it is.
Yep. Confirmed.
So they chose to discard this card that not only draws them an extra card, but also like sets like is really strong late game for them. Like they're already at 7 out of 9. It's like not that unlikely that they would be able to get there, honestly. And we're not putting them under any pressure, certainly.
Notably, they chose to cast the abandoned attachments over that because they wanted to leave up Octopus form, because we were pretty clearly representing some kind of interaction for their creatures. So like that's the reason they didn't cast the Spirit Water Revival last turn. But what Jason is pointing out is that that was, out of all of the cards in their hand, the card they chose to discard. And because it like represents a pretty unique effect, it's unblockable, we're at low life total, it's likely that they have some other way to enable that effect if they chose to discard that, or they just have some absolute banger spells in hand that are just like better than the Spirit Water Revival either way.
Yeah. I don't know if we can beat some absolute banger spells, so I'm gonna live in the world where, and you know, a lot of absolute banger spells would draw cards too, like Wan Shi Tang or whatever. But I'm gonna live in the world where mostly I think they just have more card draw in hand. Like both for like 2 different reasons point to this with regards to the Spirit Water Revival, which is like, you know, obviously they want to draw extra cards to trigger their stuff. So like probably if they're discarding Spirit Water Revival, they're more likely to like have more of that to like keep the ball rolling. But also like discarding Spirit Water Revival says that they think they're like fine in the late game, right? Like it's Spirit Water Revival is a really powerful late game tool, and they're like, nah, I don't need that. So their hand is more likely to be like good late game cards as well, in which case like, well, I mean, those mostly draw cards too, you know, like maybe it's like water bending lesson or things like that, you know? So all of that points to me to them like just having a way to draw an extra card next turn. So I don't want to bank on them not being able to.
Okay, so can we finally say we're not allowed to cast Messenger Hawk?
Yes, I believe so.
That
Another
was what
part
all this
of
was kind of turning back around on.
another part of not casting Messenger Hawk is like, okay, if you think that the only thing they have is like, a water if they face up showed you their hand is all water bending lessons. Messenger Hawk isn't that bad to cast because you could cast it, chump their like Knowledge Seeker and draw a card. But like it's just so bad if they have some removal spell for the hawk because then you need to like cast your enter the avatar state to save the hawk, and the hawk can't really do anything anyways, right? Like it can block the 1/3, but that's not like an especially like inspiring block. And compared to the mechanist, we don't like get the clue and the like ability to have a 3/1 to block next turn. Um, so and then we don't get to crack the clue from the hawk either. So that like we have ways of saving hawk from removal, but that like negates the benefit of playing hawk anyways, which is drawing towards our 6th land. So yes, let's not play hawk.
All right, one out
Down
of
to three
one
options.
out of four discarded. What are our other three options, and like how do we even begin to compare these? So like two of them I see as quite similar: Invasion Submersible and Aang, both essentially deal with a creature by bouncing it roughly. And probably it will be the Knowledge Seeker, although if we can hold up Aang, maybe we get the Otter Penguin if they like draw extra cards. And then they kind of represent different like types of investing in the board, right? The Submersible can be a 3/3. If we don't cast anything else, we can activate it end of turn and turn it into a 3/3 that can block going forward, but it won't block.
I will also say we definitely won't be casting anything else if it's like we can't cast our
right. There's literally nothing we can do.
Yeah. Submersible will just be like bounce a thing 3/3 next turn.
Okay. And then Aang is 2/3 now, which has question mark blocks. How do we evaluate the probability of Aang being a relevant blocker, would you say?
So that's a really interesting question because like so the way we would cast Aang is probably we are passing the turn with Aang up, right? Like we're probably not just like main phasing Aang here.
Especially because it plays around Quench anyway, so Sokka's Haiku is maybe like the one thing that would get us, but I don't think we can afford to play around that.
Yeah, and I don't think we really want to like really play around those kinds of things. And specifically what we would be trying to bait them into doing by passing with Aang is we bait them into casting a card draw spell. Like especially like let's say like casting Water Bending Lesson would be amazing for us, right? Because then we could just go, okay, respond to that with Aang. Like we could even choose to airbend the waterbending lesson if it's literally waterbending lesson, but we could also choose to airbend the Knowledge Seeker and take only 3 from the Otter Penguin. And they've like invested their like expensive card draw spell and like no longer have the ability to like commit more to the board and only are able to hit us for 3 and don't even have lethal on board next turn, right? So that's the benefit of Aang, that we could potentially like really get him by doing that, right?
And I would say also that like low outcome is not horrible with Aang either. I mean, even if we don't get them, we are still bouncing one thing, making a 2/3 blocker for the following turn. Even if we don't block with it this turn, it probably holds off the 1/3 at the very least, which can matter. I mean, we're at low life total, every point matters. And we can also protect it with Avatar State if they go after it, and that's like, relatively good, being able to double spell in ways that affect the board on this turn. So the like low end of Aang is still very strong. So I would say Aang is certainly like the leader out of all of the plays for me. Do we have a reason like we wouldn't want to cast Aang or like leave up Aang?
So one thing that you can think about is Invasion. So okay, one thing I will say about Invasion Submersible that does make it slightly better is that it is our like if we are told that we will miss our land drop next, like we will miss our 6th land next turn, Invasion Submersible might be our best play, specifically because let's say we're told that we're gonna draw Sokka's Haiku next turn, right? Like uncastable spell, we can't do anything with it. Doesn't help double spelling. Yeah, isn't a land drop, nothing like that, right? Invasion Submersible has the benefit of it lets us like kind of double spell this turn, where the spell is like bounce something and make a 3/3. Like those are the two spells, while still having a way to double spell next turn with Avatar State, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if we like casting Invasion Submersible this turn and then like Aang plus Avatar State next turn is better than casting Aang plus Avatar State this turn and just Invasion Submersible next turn, assuming we don't draw a land, right?
That is a pretty big upside. I think that is that is like a genuinely strong argument for submersible. Being able to quote unquote double spell 2 turns in a row. Like, I agree that submersible is pretty clearly over this turn cycle a worse board impact or like defensive speed impact card than Aang. But if we think about what we actually do the following turn, if we don't hit our land drop, it's really not clear what strong play we can make beyond cast Aang again, and that at that point we may be falling too far behind to whatever strong stuff they did on their turn. I don't think it totally weighs out enough for me, because like if we're not hitting our land drop, it's pretty difficult to win the game anyway, and so we may need to just assume that we do hit it.
So a couple things on this point though. Like what you said of like there's some world where we want to think like, oh, okay, we're far enough behind that like if we don't hit our 6th land drop, we're like kind of screwed anyways, so like we need to like bank on hitting it rather than anything else. That's definitely a consideration you can make. But I also think that there are just a lot of situations where casting Aang this turn, like, okay, so if it's not clear, I'm very much leaning towards casting Aang. I just think there's a lot of situations where if we like cast Aang this turn, we can swing the game so brutally in our direction that it doesn't matter if we miss our land drop next turn. That just casting a submersible next turn will still be enough. For example, just thinking about some common, just think about some common play patterns that could happen, right? Our opponent, like I said, casts Waterbending Lesson. That's a card that I like think is like some probability to be in their hand, right? They cast Waterbending Lesson, and then we go Aang, like in combat we go Aang, airbend your 4/3, block your 1/3, take 3, untap, play Submersible, bounce your Otter Penguin. You now have like 2/2 drops in exile and just a 1/3 on board. We're under no pressure. Like we're at 5, but we're like under no immediate pressure.
Sorry,
and we
didn't
this
even
is the
scenario where they cast Waterbending Lesson. Is that right?
Yeah, this is like what happens if they cast Waterbending Lesson.
Yep,
right.
Gotcha.
Another play pattern could be, they just go, okay, you're clearly holding something up. I'm just gonna attack. Right? And then they just like go do attacks first. There's not that many instant speed card draw spells. We go Aang, airbend your 3/2, block your Otter, like threaten to block your Otter Penguin with Avatar State to like save Aang from like a potential removal spell.
Yeah.
That also like completely blows them out. They might have like it's possible they would have some things that would like prevent that from being like as good as it would be. But like that has a very large potential to blow them out. Right.
Specifically because we have the Avatar State. Like, I think if we didn't have that, it makes it a lot lower probability, although it's still possible. But yeah.
Just in general, there's I think Aang has so many different chances to completely swing the game here that I think that it is just the correct play. And like there are benefits to some other plays, certainly. Like we talked about Messenger Hawk to probably too much detail. We talked about Invasion Submersible, but I think the fact that the Invasion Submersible is like more face up about like what it's doing, it lets them the correct move for pressuring us rather than like just like punishing them for whatever line they're taking. Like makes it a lot weaker than Aang here.
I think that
we should also talk about the Mechanist, though.
Yes, I was going to say we do need to eventually discuss the Mechanist, the Mechanist in the room. So, what is the kind of on the surface reason to play the Mechanist? What is the upside?
The upside of playing the Mechanist is that it is better next turn if we play it this turn.
Yes. There's that, and I would even argue that like it's better on all of the following turns in a pretty meaningful way. So like the
Yeah.
kind of obvious thing going on here is that like we have two. I'm not going to count the planetarium because we're not tapping out for that anytime soon. We have two non-creature spells in hand. And when you get the Mechanist online, it not only is like a flying blocker, it's kind of a flying blocker that is not really easy to interact with and kind of like get out of the way before you actually go into combat, because they can't really play any sorcery speed removal on it. And even if you like animate something, then they kill it, right? You just animate a clue the next turn, and it's like the same blocker is just back. So there is kind of a real benefit to, if we feel like we can get away with deploying the Mechanist this turn, 2 turns down the line, we will have like an extra recursive flying blocker that is hard to remove. We do have this enter the avatar state to protect it, but I think the question is still, can we get away with deploying it?
Yeah. So obviously the downside of deploying it is like, okay, let's say we play it, and then the opponent takes a very obvious line of like, cast a card draw spell, right?
Yeah.
Then we have this enter the avatar state, but like we're really punished by them not casting a removal spell because like
we're just going to
our
one
Mechanist
or
can't block.
Yeah.
Right, like we either go to 1 or we like chump the or we like chump the Knowledge Seeker, neither of which are particularly like if we're chumping the Knowledge Seeker, it looked really embarrassing to cast Mechanist instead of Message Rock. Right.
Yes.
So that's definitely the downside. Obviously, it's really nice if like the opponent casts a removal spell and doesn't have a card draw spell to go with it, and then we just like save the Mechanist.
Take 3 from Knowledge Seeker, but have a really nice
and they like
next
can't
turn.
really attack with their other creatures. That would be nice, but that is not guaranteed to happen. I also think that your analysis of the Mechanist a little bit overrates the importance of getting it online, because it would be one thing if we were leaning towards casting like both of our non-creature spells this turn, right? Like if we were leaning towards casting both our Submersible and our Enter to Avatar state, but obviously we're not doing that. We literally can't do that. Like let's say like if the main plan we're comparing it to is like casting Aang plus Avatar state, right? Like we're just assuming we're going to use both those cards next turn. Then like if we draw land, going Mechanist Submersible means we probably get to untap with the Mechanist and a clue, right? Like we're probably not going to need to chump with the Mechanist. For one thing, we can like if we go Mechanist, if we go Mechanist Submersible, we can also like animate the Submersible and block with that. And like we just Aang, like again, like the whole premise of the Aang line is it buys us so much tempo that we probably can like have the Mechanist be online anyways later
on the like third turn out from now.
Yeah. And so like I also think that like with Planetarium in our hand, it's not obvious that we need to get that much value from the Mechanist. It's entirely possible that I might just be fine like at some point playing the Mechanist and chumping with it this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like depending on how our draws go. I don't think we need it given the rest of our hand to like be that strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's the factor that like our opponent does have a lot of spells still, and we have reason to believe that some of them are relatively good. And so even on top of the Planetarium, we may need that ability to go over the top with like finishing the game out with a bunch of like
Aang.
clue tokens and flipping Aang or whatever, like that kind of thing. But I mostly agree that like our primary issue here is not winning a late game; it is not dying.
Yeah, and I think the Mechanist is just die and also not that much better, like not that much better than just like casting it later after casting Aang.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So our final conclusion is we should pass leaving up Aang, and I guess our plan, if the opponent just goes to combat and attacks, is Aang target Knowledge Seeker. That is
Yeah.
relatively safe against anything except like Sokka's Haiku, because we have protection for a removal spell and we're playing around Quench by leaving up 2 mana.
They could have like it'll quench you plus removal spell.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
force us to tap out and then remove it.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
there's obviously like combinations of things. We're far enough behind that many combinations of 2 spells do spell doom for us here,
yeah.
I would say. Let's say, they untap and I'm trying to think of like some kind of relevant spell that isn't a card draw spell or like or a removal spell. There isn't really much I'm thinking of in the format. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Aang play is just kind of strong, and it sets up best for the following turn. Not best out of all of our plays and all of the possibilities, but like the best in the sense that we are falling the least far behind. Anything else about this spot that you want to talk
about? Really, I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
I also do you think that we maybe like landed on the like quote unquote obvious answer in that Aang is like like the most like face up like this is the strongest card in our hand, maybe we should cast that. But I think that the analysis is like very useful because like I think it's like I think that like all 3 of the other options, even the Messenger Hawk,
they
have their
reasons.
benefits and like what like in slightly different scenarios I think that that I could see the other ones being the correct answer.
So you guys will notice, I think, in the last episode that I was a little cagey about revealing specifically what happened in the game. That's because I knew we were going to be doing this. So what did I actually do in this spot? I played the Mechanist. I think I was just rounding in my head to like have to assume that we're not dead this turn. Best possible outcome is that they have removal, and so I want to punish them for that by playing an Enter the Avatar state and then untapping with like an extra clue so that I can double spell with the Submersible even if we don't draw our 6th land. Like there's, that was kind of the reasoning going through my head. I was probably playing a little bit too quickly. Didn't have 30 minutes to discuss with Jason to figure out the line, but also probably could have just like thought, oh yeah, I'm far behind, cast Aang. It's the best card. It prevents us from falling far behind. So yeah, they cast this. We protected at Mechanist.
It went
they
really well
attacked
for you.
with their 1/3, which was sketchy. It
Yeah,
did end up going pretty well.
By the way, probably best possible card they could have cast into your Mechanist. Not only the probably it looks like it may have been like the only way they had to draw an extra card, and also it was a removal spell, so you got to fizzle it.
Yes, and it is true that like if you kind of think long enough about the format, maybe you come to the conclusion that it's a reasonable possibility they have exactly airbending lesson, but I'm not going to pretend that I was doing that kind of analysis here. So yeah, and then in the long run, we did do the Submersible double spell thing, but we had drawn a land, so we instead just like anged and then made a thing end of turn. We ended up not falling too far behind, actually, and planning on taking over the game with our Planetarium. Our opponent cast an Aang's Iceberg, and I messed up here. Let's do a very, very
Bonus
brief
game
mini
land
episode. Yeah. What should we do here? Let's look at our deck list. Oh, would you look at that? It's 2 Idle Quenches. Huh. Our opponent has 1 mana available. We have our Planetarium in play. Should we activate now or activate later? The correct answer, obviously, activate now. We let the trigger resolve. It targeted the Planetarium, because obviously that's what it's going to target. And I scryed into a Quench and had to bottom it, and then revealed a land off the top. Didn't cast anything, got our Planetarium removed, and lost a long game after all of that happened. Even though we flipped Aang, they had their removal spell for it. We drew a bunch of cards. A lot of them were lands because we had missed land drops earlier. And I'm pretty sure we lost, although let me just confirm.
Yes,
because many other things happened in this game.
You lost to a second octopus form at some point, I believe.
I see. On the
like
troop or something. Oh, I see.
Or no. It was a Razor Rings.
Yeah.
At some point you like cast some spell to try to go for lethal, and then no, it wasn't even trying to go to try to go for a trade, and then they had the Razor Rings for it.
I see. Well, 2.5 episodes out of this one game. Next time we'll be back with a different spot, possibly even with Lorwyn, because there is early access for that, and I think that does show up on 17 lands now that we have, we're playing with our normal accounts. So That'll be fun. Hopefully this avatar set. We basically played only with blue-white decks, so I'm going to try to find a non-blue-white spot to play for the next episode, probably the Lauren one. But yeah, until next time, you guys can find me at r-condon.bsky.social or at Patreon at Ryan C MTG. Jason, where can they find you?
You can find me at JasonILTG basically everywhere.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys, for listening. Until next time, go out and make some good plays.
Hey.